Welcome to November. I hope you all had a magical Samhain. It is as if Halloween is not ending this year, maybe for another 6 months or so. We're in the midst of a swirling eclipse cycle. We're going to talk about a full moon lunar eclipse coming up just a few days here on November 8th. A lot to say, much more than one person can, especially speaking to an audience with a roughly 5-minute attention span. So let me break it apart. I'm going to start this video introducing the eclipse. We'll talk about Venus on the south node, Mars retrograde, and then we'll come full circle back to this lunar eclipse, which is joined the exact degree as Uranus at 16 degrees Taurus and square to Saturn in Aquarius, all right? So a lunar eclipse illuminates the themes of the times, the evolutionary drive, the direction in terms of where collective needs are coming from the past and where things need to move into the future. So eclipse periods are swirling. They can be chaotic. They can be confusing. There's new beginnings, breakups, moves, changes of circumstance. And this is to align with the evolutionary directions of the day. It's a north node in Taurus eclipse. So this is taking us towards an increase of sovereignty, spaciousness, self-connection, the resources that we need for stability. And it can be easier said than done. Uranus is retrograde right now. There is a floor, or rather a rug being ripped out from underneath us type of experience. There is so much unpredictability, and this full moon can be highly affecting the nervous system. So we're talking about trauma, we're talking about coping mechanisms, and the magic and the medicine to be found in Taurus is somatic, what relaxes the nervous system, what brings us back to the present moment, the sound of the leaves touching the ground, the sound of the wind through the tree branches, the smell, the feeling of feet on the ground. These are the tools to return to ourself, to return to the moment. And amidst so much swirling and so much transformation, wherever there may be spaces that are left, these spaces, although uncertain at the moment, can be the doorway and the portal into the future. Wherever there is spaciousness, there's an opportunity for us to create an altar, or rather, that altar will create itself by simply allowing, holding, and appreciating the spaciousness wherever it does show up in our life at this time. Now, this last Wednesday, this would have been November 2nd, we saw Venus conjoin the south node of the moon in Scorpio. Our last new moon was joined by Venus on the south node of the moon in Scorpio. So this is a highlighted theme these days. Venus will be on the south node through the 10th, but also these forthcoming 6 months. And there's an incredible magnetism, an attraction-repulsion. I love them, I hate them. I need them, I don't need them. And it's forcing us to look at our core needs. It's forcing us to look at our relationship patterns. This can be a time where exes reappear, where we're remembering our experiences in the past. And this is about how do we receive resources, support from other people. As we mentioned, this eclipse brings this theme into such a clear, objective seeing. What we have, what we don't have, what's missing in terms of fundamental needs. We've been talking about this the whole last year with the North Node in Taurus. Needs go beyond just water and food and shelter. We're going to talk about highly personal and individual needs. Taurus is our own biological rhythm. Everybody's got a very unique system. And this is a time, again, where we're paying attention to our unique nervous system, how we've coped with these things in the past, how relationship dynamics get all interwound. Venus on the south node in Scorpio is quite Freudian. This is a time period at looking at relationship dysfunction. The shadow of Venus on the south node can be this type of grippiness or demanding. I deserve a partner. Why are they not here? I deserve these resources. Why are they not here? And there is a need to acknowledge where there may be fears, control issues, insecurities, as these insecurities can be driving a lot of how we're reacting and responding with lovers in relationship and even work associates, money dynamics. It can be very intense. Now, Venus on the south node in Scorpio, we can also see cases of soul reunion, a celebration and acknowledgement of love and connection. So it's not all negative, but this can be a very challenging dynamic where these fears, unconscious insecurities are coming up. And what we're really doing is looking at old ways of doing relationship, where they may have been driven by insecurities, the traumas of the past, and where those relationship dynamics are needing to evolve. The theme of the day is again Taurus, so there is a nearly mass migration towards sovereignty. Traditional relationships and staying with the same person till death do us part is certainly on its way out. And you may be noticing this theme coming up collectively as well. How can we do well enough on our own? Taurus is not about being wrapped up into other people's dramas, wrapped up into other people's complexities. It's about seeking high ground. And yet, Venus on the south node says, well, it's really a balancing act of extremes. We can't throw the baby out. Oh, I'm sorry. Someone got mad at me because I say that too often last time. What I mean is we can't beat a dead horse. We can't just do the same thing forever and ever. Sound better? There's a need for a relationship. There's a need for intimacy. There's a need for sexual connection, and it can be quite muddy. It can be quite complex at this time. So the key is to not overdo Scorpio. Scorpio's no in between. Scorpio's extremes, burning bridges or needing them in a soul-merging, unhealthy type of way. So this is where the balancing act of Taurus, patience, slowness, gentleness, it's gonna be all right. It's not such a big deal. I totally understand. Trust me, it may seem like a very big deal, but feet on the ground, bowl of cereal, good music on, fuzzy slippers, a nice bath. These are the Taurus essentials. These are life-changing somatic therapies. Full moon on Uranus can be introducing pioneering modalities. We're introducing somatic therapy that's taking a step into the future at this time. Excited to get there, I must admit. All right, next part. Mars retrograde. Mars station retrograde at the end of October, 25 degrees Gemini. Will station direct at 8 degrees Gemini on January 8th, and then finally leave Gemini in March. Now, overall, these next several months, now through springtime, this Mars retrograde has an overall theme of us, crazy, complex human beings, learning to do more, to juggle more, to be the multifaceted, diverse people that we are. And it's as if each of us has multiple personality disorder to a certain respect. I study the planets in astrology, so it gets more increasingly obvious. We have different sides. We have different needs. We have different people and places to satiate the diversity of our own interests, curiosities, and desires. So this Mars retrograde, which is really going to take us into 2023, it's about doing more, juggling more, having a diverse portfolio, more connections. This is going to lead people into writing, communication, the initiation of new friend groups, activities, and learning opportunities. Okay? That's all on the menu. That's all coming. But it's a little stuck right now. Mars stations in a first quarter square to Neptune and a gibbous phase quincunx to Pluto. And boy, I can talk about this aspect pattern because I was born with Mars first quarter phase of Neptune and quincunx to Pluto. Now, what this brings up is a collective experience of stuckness. Stuckness, so much to do, such little time. So much to do, but overwhelm, nowhere to hide. Indecisiveness, lack of motivation, lack of energy or decisiveness. So for those of you who are struggling and having a hard time, maybe you can have a bit of empathy for my entire life experience. Now, what this means is this is a trial and error period. Mars stationing retrograde is not concrete, this is who I am, this is what I want to do. It's a reductionist process. Trying on a pair of shoes, does this fit? Marie Kondoing the various options. When I hold it, does it create a spark? And if not, I'll give it away, or I'll put it back where I found it. What I would suggest is that you do not get rid of anything should there be a spark. There can be lots of sparks right now. And, it's like almost pulling all of the drawers out of the closet and just going through everything without having to know what exactly you're going to do with everything quite yet. Just survey and receive all of this information. And don't take it too seriously if things aren't shooting forward altogether right now. This is more of an introduction of this next several months theme, which is a reinvention of what do we really want to do? What motivates us? What excites us? Mars in Gemini is driven by curiosity, interests. What are we researching? How are we connecting the dots? How are we, again, connecting these different people together? So we have a diverse portfolio. Mars fundamentally rules desire. Desire is not something that we pick and choose. It comes from an instinctual, the animal wisdom, part of ourself. And these desires are connected to our soul's evolution. There is no such thing as, meaningless desire. Mars retrograde is, why do we have this instinct, reactivity, anger, frustration, intensity of desire? What is that? What do we really want? And as an evolutionary astrologer, we need to understand that Mars is the leading edge of our soul's evolution. By exploring our desires, we're actually stepping into our soul's evolutionary journey. It's called an incarnation because it is our carnal, martial desires that's actually at the root of us being born. You may have heard of a carnival, which is a celebration of earthly desires. I suggest we all go to the carnival of humanity within our own psyche at this time. Be our own soul detective and start to map it out. What is working and what is not working? Mars fundamentally rules sexuality. We all have a libido. We all have spark. That spark is the reason to live. Desire is, in many cases, a tension. It is in between where we are and where we want to go. And that desire keeps us moving, keeps us motivated. So we never want to throw away desire. We want to use it. And at the same time, we don't want to torture ourselves. This can be a part of this Mars stationing square to Neptune. What's real, what's not real, what's fantasy, what's not fantasy. And what I'm going to tell you is that fantasy is actually healthy when you're fantasizing consciously, such as when we go to a film or we read a book. We know that that's a fantasy. We know that there is a beginning and an end. We return to our life even though we may temporarily disassociate into a fantasy world. So that's using fantasy consciously, and we can use that to relax our nervous system, our body, to calm ourselves when there's such an intensity or overwhelm going on the outside. Now, for those of you who are familiar with my work, you know I am not a fan of conspiracy theories. It amazes me the entrenchment in conspiracy theories that so many spiritual New Age people go into. It's greatly disturbing to me, honestly. Such a huge pitfall for so many people who tune into me, my demographic, and I'm concerned. Conspiracy theories can be true and real, but quite oftentimes they are a fantasy. But not a conscious fantasy, an unconscious fantasy, where people don't know that it's not real. So many people are into conspiracy theories to escape their reality. It's a coping mechanism, just like going into a film or a book or a horror movie, more so with conspiracies. But this is it can create delusional realities if we actually believe that fantasy to be real. So there's a difference between conscious and unconscious fantasy. There's ways to explore desire in a way that's safe, in a way that is healing, in a way that is invigorating. And that's what we're talking about with this Mars retrograde. Do we probably know what that is right now? No, but can we be opening the drawers and at least working through some things? Now would be the time for exactly that. Now, while I'm on the topic of sexuality, and here I mentioned I was born under this admittedly painful aspect. Sexuality, just like individuality, is completely different per each and every individual. Mars being the leading edge of our soul's evolution, our sexuality is also very connected to our soul's evolution. There's a lot of standards, expectations, societal oppression in this realm. For example, not everyone is even sexual. There are naturally asexual people. Do they need to be super concerned with sexuality in their own soul's evolution? Of course not. There's naturally hermit people. Do they have to be super intimately involved with others for their soul's evolution? Of course not. Are there isolated, lonely hermit people that need intimacy, sexuality, and connection desperately as a part of their soul's evolution? Of course. So something I'd like to share with you that's a little bit more personal is that there are different ways of being sexually aroused. There are people that get aroused through their partners. There are people that get aroused in and of themselves and go more into a trance state. And then there's a third group that is more aroused through role play, things, costumes, imagination. And admittedly, I am in this third group, always have been, and have not really been able to express this side of myself due to the amount of shaming coming from society and coming from the misunderstandings of the people around me. Even one of my favorite astrologers really put down the usage of things, objects, or clothing in sexuality. And obviously they were a little partial to their own version of sexuality. That's why I'm speaking to this. This is something to speak to. There's a lot of misunderstanding here. Mars retrograde is an opportunity to clear, liberate, get any corks unclogged, to return to our own unique natural sexuality. So, it's not like you're just having sex with clothes and not the soul. It's having a celebration or a sensual experience, Taurus, shared with a soul. Taurus is using things, using sensuality, even makeup, jewelry, and adornment is all Taurus. And this is not anti-spiritual. This is not unnatural. This is not unhealthy. But I'll let you know, with this aspect I was born under, certainly that's been my experience all throughout life so far. Taurus is using things as a vehicle to change our consciousness. Just like how magicians will use different costumes or clothing to get into a role or a character for magical purposes. We can use the body, things, senses, somatic information to relax and calm our nervous system. Sexuality is essentially core healing, in addition to being, obviously, the source of all life. Otherwise, how did we get there? Again, it's an incarnation. So how can we consider any of these things inappropriate or off limits when no one's being harmed? The bottom line and the essential need is safety. Chiron's in Aries. Jupiter will return back to Aries in a couple months. We need to have the safe space to explore and self-discover. Now, to come full circle back to our full moon lunar eclipse, same degree as Uranus, morning of November 8th here in the Americas. This eclipse also squares Saturn. Saturn is square to the moon's nodes in Aquarius, and Saturn is transiting the planetary south node of Neptune. Now Saturn square the moon's nodes, square the eclipse, Venus ruling the eclipse, square to Saturn on the day of this eclipse, says there is work to be done. My guess is a lot of pop astrologers are going to talk about this full moon being Taurus, like a warm, fragrant dish covered in flowers being served to us on a silver platter. I hope so, but my guess is it's going to take a little bit more effort to sow the seeds, grow the flowers, harvest the flowers, sow the seeds, gather the food, create the celebration, create the altar, create the temple. This is the time to do so. But do we need to roll up our sleeves? Probably. Because what this signature says, eclipse on Uranus, square to Saturn in Aquarius, is the total global economic situation is changing. We're going to really feel that and see it under this eclipse. But we're also seeing and experiencing this on the microcosmic level, in our own immediate environment. How are we connecting with local community? Where are we getting money and resources? Again, it's like a rug being ripped out from under our feet. There's a need to reconnect this flow, these channels. It's like telephone operator. Where are we going to get this now? Who are we going to connect with in order to get this need met, in order to provide this resource? And this is the time for community builders, community building, pioneers and pioneering. This is the time. Do we have to roll up our sleeves? Yes. Is everyone going to do it? No. The pioneers are the few and far between people that are actually spearheading this thing into the future. These are few and far between people. These want to be the people that you're connecting with right now. Or, finding the local person that's beginning a new, adventure. This could be a very big opportunity. The vast majority of souls are just riding on the coattails of these pioneers. Really intense times, everything's changing, everybody needs help. It's going to be a few people that find the solutions, that are actually going ahead, stepping forward, and applying the conscious effort. All of you hearing this message here and today, I want this to be you. There's no reason to wait for somebody else to do it for you. That is likely not to be the most supportive thing right now. It's not a time to play it safe by hanging on to something that's rotten or stagnant. Similar to the Venus South Node, we could stay in a dysfunctional relationship our whole life. Is that really playing it safe? Or is that going to oppress our capabilities, our creativity, our excitement, our innovation throughout our life? No. So, this is the time for innovation. This is a time where taking risks and doing something different can be paying it forward. And the point here is if we're taking a chance or gambling with the new, we're actually opening the doorway to the future, to step into increased possibilities. We can make more money, for example, with less effort by doing something new and different, say something other people aren't doing. This is a time to step into exclusivity. This is the time to form your local community, your local group, and your local network, and to do it in your way, and to honor your pace, and to bring what you value and cherish the most in your heart out into the world. This can be a massive show and tell. Each and every one of us can be creating our magical temple spaces. That's to retreat into and fill up our own glass. This is what the true hermit is. The hermit is the individual so connected to natural forces, they are a living temple. They don't need anybody or anything outside of their own self-connection to be informed of what is the truth, of what's up and what's down, and how to be totally self-satiated. So each and every one of us is creating this internal temple space. And this full moon is the opportunity to lay that grid work in our heart. Again, whatever is changing and swirling and creating spaces at this time, that spaciousness can be an opportunity. may be the doorway into the future, even if it's a giant question mark right now, even if it's an unknown. I suggest to you that you dip your toe a bit into the water. Taurus is the body is a temple. Our room is a temple. This earth is a temple. Our heart is a temple. If we simply create a space and honor that space as something sacred, we create a meeting point and a conduit between our soul and spirit. And that's where we get to align our struggles with collective struggles, our pains with the healing of the collective. That's the opportunity here. That's where whatever seems like a curse can transmutate into a hidden blessing. So, my friends, full moon the exact degree of Uranus, get your mad scientist hat on, start mixing and matching different chemicals, because it's all trial and error. It's not about having things perfectly figured out right now. It's about seeing what's going to change colors, what's going to have a chemical reaction, what's going to fizzle, what's going to shout, and then we're taking notes. We can come back to these notes, eliminate what's not working, and focus on what is. Later on, more momentum coming to us at the end of November, and certainly towards the end of the year. If you're into any of this stuff, I want to be connecting with you through my online community. Speaking of networking and, pulling out what we love and connecting with other brilliant souls, I can't tell you how meaningful the Rasa Leela community is for myself personally. It's life-changing. There's amazing people. There's discussions taking place that you can't find anywhere else. And there's opportunities to collaborate. Initiate your own meetings, start your own circle. There's this type of exciting, creative, collaborative vibe that I'm attempting to stir, sow seeds for, and stoke the fire to continue to grow the years coming into the future. Catch you in the next video. Enjoy this eclipse. Do some Taurian celebration. And I'll see you talking about the Sagittarius new moon towards the end of the month. As always, take care, my friends.